moment, and we're going to try and diagnose which is or what is the cause. Now we know that there's a number of reasons why a person can be out of balance. It could be that they've got parasites in them. It could be that they've got a mechanical problem with an area like the neck or spine. It could be that they've got a cranial fault because they've hit their head. It could be because they're eating the wrong sort of food for them. We looked at a few of those as far as the body types. There's a number of reasons why a person can be out of balance. So what we're going to do here is in the clear from strength to challenge for any weakening eye position. Now these positions are called eyes into distortion and were taken from neuro-linguistic programming. So some of you may have heard of neuro-linguistic programming, some of you may not. But in the earlier times of neuro-linguistic programming, it was observed by psychologists. Now this is not neurology. Neurology will argue about this, but psychologists have observed that when a person is asked a question, their eyes will often move to the left or to the right. If they move to the left, they're accessing more the left brain, which is more the memory of facts which they put into it. If their eyes move to the right brain, which is the more imaginative brain, they're thinking of an answer. They don't know the answer, so they're thinking of it. And what they observed is if the eyes move to the left and up, and in that sort of direction, they're thinking more from a visual point of view. They're seeing their answer. So if I ask you to remember the last year's holiday back in the summer where you went, and I took my children to Mallorca, to a very popular part of Mallorca, okay, with young people. So if I asked about, remember that holiday, I can visualize it. We had a balcony, we were on about the 3rd floor up. And then, if my eyes go to the left straight across, it's auditory. What I didn't know and forgot about is that young people like to go out for the night. And young people like to come back at 8 o'clock in the morning, or earlier, and party underneath you. So all during the night, the best thing was to get an early night because you weren't going to sleep the rest of the night or during the morning. They would get up at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then get a bit of sun and go to the pool, come back, have a few drinks, and then go out for the night. So I would perhaps auditory think about the noise, and then if my eyes go to the left and down, it's the kinesthetic, in other words, the feeling and the touch aspects. Now if I do the same thing to my imaginative side, I go to the right. Now I'm going to think about a holiday that I've never been on. Okay. Now I enjoyed that holiday because there was some life in it. I'm not a person who actually likes summer green. I don't like too much peace and quiet and nothing to do. So the ideal of going on a desert island with nobody else there is not my sort of ideal of a holiday. But I've heard about Tahiti. It's supposed to be very nice, supposed to be year round, etc., etc. I've heard about, I've never seen pictures of it, but they're supposed to have beautiful hotels. And so I'm looking to the right and imagining me on the beach in Tahiti. So I'm visualizing it to the right and up. If I'm getting an auditory experience, I'm visualizing it to the right and straight across. And if I'm visualizing more of the touch or kinesthetic, to the right and down. And those were the basic sort of 6 positions. So in the coming months, as the election campaign in this country progresses, all you've got to do is look at politicians when they're on the television, when they're asked questions, and see which way their eyes go. You know instinctively that when a person's eyes go to the left, they're telling the truth because they're accessing their information. When they go to the right, they're imagining an answer. So they don't know the answer, so they're visualizing. And the answer that they're going to give you may be the truth, maybe not, we don't know. But there's something fishy about them, isn't there? Because when they go to the right, there's something you don't have to be told, and that's a shifty person. Okay? So maybe that's why, you know, the politicians who turn up for the debates, watch them very carefully. I suppose the clever ones won't turn up for the debates in case they're spotted. But clever people can be programmed by people who instruct them, never look to the right, always look to the left, because you look very as if you're telling the truth, even if you're not. Tell them the truth. So it'd be very interesting when people tell her, have a close look at them and see which way their eyes go when they're asked a question. So Sean, when you ask me a question about that, watch my eyes, look into my eyes, and if my eyes go to the right, you'll know I'm thinking, I'll have to make up an answer for him very quickly. Okay, if my eyes go to the left, I'm okay, I'm home and dry, I can remember probably the answer to it. Okay, so left, right. Now I've added in, Dr. Goodhart used these eye positions in relationship to the meridians. What he found, he used to do the meridians to the pulses a lot, find the positive meridian on the pulse. Sometimes people didn't show positive on anything until they put their eyes in certain positions. And when they put their eyes in certain positions, the pulse went and the muscle associated with that meridian weakened. Okay, so he knew the link, he'd worked out the link between the muscles, the meridians, and what was probably the components of what was causing that. Now, I've observed the same thing, that sometimes people will change eye positions to the different positions on the left and right to the challenge. So we started off doing the same thing. You can do it from the meridians here. I'm personally doing it from the alarm points of what we've just learned as far as finding the most stressed meridians and finding which position negates. Sometimes several positions negate. You can use this technique in the clear, in other words, straight from where the person is at the moment, without any therapy localizations, to see which eye position weakens, or from a therapy localization or from a challenge, or you can do it from a meridian, so you'll be working from weakness to find out which position strengthens, or if you're working in the clear, you can find out which eye position weakens a person. Now, my observation is that there is a particular meaning to each of these eye positions. And the one to the left and up, and we'll get to know these quite well, is nutrition. The one straight across is more toxins, we find, and the one to the left and down is mechanical or structural problems. This is all in the notes, so don't bother to copy them. And the one to the right and up is more dehydration. One straight across is exercise, and the one to the right is allergy or intolerance. That leaves a couple of other very, very important issues. One of those is infections, and we found that that's a circumduction around and round, 2 or 3 times one way and also the other way. We have cranial faults, which are associated with what we call primary respiratory motions, so we do inspiration, expiration to see whether that makes a difference. And lastly, we have hypoxia, which is a lack of oxygen, which, if you like, is the ultimate nutrient, which we do by taking the eyes up and down, up and down, up and down. And ATP, or energy, which we do left, right, left, right, left, right as an aerobic challenge. Now, each of these accesses different areas in the brain because of the way the challenge that we're doing. And there is an order or a sequence that you do this in. Now, I used to, for many years, just start on there, go bum, 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 and go round and see what came up. And then I thought, there must be a reason why the body gets into trouble as it is. And so we start with one, and then we do the next, and then we do the next. So we're going to start with the first one, which is cranial. So cranial is when you've hit your head and your skull mechanism doesn't open and close in with the respiration in the way that it should do. Okay? We call this a cranial fault. And that's the first thing we're going to be doing. So, Joe? So if we get a patient, were you a patient? You a patient? Have you been a patient? Would you like to be a patient? Only if you want to be a patient. Anybody want to be a patient? Yes, yes. Anybody want to be a patient? Be a patient? Okay, the girl over there, she's got her hand up. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to find out where her primary meridians are, phenotype and genotype. So while Jill is doing that, she'll find the two by putting fingers in the umbilicus going round the alarm points, and then she's going to find out by the eyes down which is the primary one there. So we'll let her get on with that one. And then we're going to go and do the eye positions. Now, the eye positions, as I say, can be used from a point of reference like a therapy localization or an acupuncture alarm points here, or we can do it in the clear. So let's take a case where we might do it in the clear. Okay? Patient comes in, they've got a pain in the neck. The pain in the neck's come on not for any reason. Okay, they just came on during the day or they woke up with this pain in the neck. What you would do is the muscle test, patient's strong, and then you take them through the different eye positions and find which one or one's weakened. Now, this is really important because the one to the left and down is mechanical or structural problems. And that would indicate it's a mechanical problem. They twisted their neck, they've got a locking in there in some way, and they need sorting out. Okay? If, on the other hand, they're going to the left straight across, and that negates or causes a muscle to weaken, that would mean there's a biochemical problem related to a toxin. So it could be something they're eating. Number 3 possibility is if it's to the left and up and it's a nutritional deficiency, they could be deficient in something. And that deficiency in something could be something like vitamin D. If they've got deficiency in vitamin D, they may not be getting their calcium metabolism right. They may be depositing calcium in the joints, in the synovial joints, which will give them extreme pain in the synovial membranes. So this would show up as a nutrition. May need fish oil or something to dissolve the calcium to release it. Okay? So these positions will tell you what the problem is or where it comes from. Let's take another example. Let's say you wake up in the morning with a headache. That's a good one, isn't it? Almost anything can cause a headache. Oh, got on. Okay. Is it something mechanical because you slept awkwardly, etc., etc.? So you therapy localize the headache. Okay, strong muscle goes weak. You'd be doing this obviously on somebody else. You can't do this on yourself. Okay, so strong muscle goes weak. So you get them to breathe in, test, breathe out, test. That tests the respiratory system or for a cranial fault. And then you go round and round in the eyes, test for infections, because it could be that they got an infection at that stage, because infections will create toxins in the system which create headaches, particularly parasites. Okay, and then we'll take the eyes, let's say to the left to test for toxins, see whether that does. Eyes to the right and down for allergy, because it could be again something you've eaten last thing or yesterday, and that's caused a toxic reaction. Eyes to the left and down could be mechanical, or less likely you could be deficient in something to cause a headache, which you don't normally get. Okay, so it gives you some ideas straight in into where you should be looking very, very quickly. Okay, what have we got?
We've got bladder.
Bladder.
And liver.
And liver, and the emotional one.
The emotional one is the bladder.
Is the bladder. So we're not going to do the bladder at the moment because we're going to do the phenotype expression. All right, so that's the liver.
Yeah.
So one finger in the umbilicus, the other finger on the liver meridian point there. Show me a strong indicator muscle. Okay, so now we're going to go through the different eye positions. Now I've numbered the eye positions different from just doing 3 down one side, 3 down the other, for a reason, because this is how the body unfolds problems. And you'll learn that what's happening here is what it displays, the most up front part, is caused by something else behind, and behind. And at the end of the behind is the emotion, which is why we do the emotion last, because the emotion causes the next bit, the next bit, the next bit. So ultimately, if the person ends up as zinc deficient, okay, you still got to give the zinc even though you correct the emotional problem, and because that's not going to build up, correct the emotional problem is not going to build up the zinc. You may limit the amount of zinc that the person's burning up and requires by sorting the emotion out, but if they're zinc deficient, they're still zinc deficient. Okay? But because they're zinc deficient, they may have picked up an infection because their immune system, and they may not be healing correctly, and things may be going twang. So there could be a mechanical component, there could be a nutritional deficiency, they may have an infection. So there is a reason for this order. Okay? Now the first one we're going to do is respiratory. So we're going to breathe in, see if there's a cranial fault. Okay? And breathe out. Breathe right out and hold it out. So in is in and hold it in, out is out. So no change, breathe normally. Always tell the patient to breathe normally out. Okay? Now the next one is circumduction of the eye. Number 2 is for an infection. So follow the finger round and round. Remember in your own mind you're going clockwise or anti-clockwise the first one. So you're doing it 3 times. Okay, and then do it round the other way. In case you miss a part, people have what's called ocular lock. They can't track. They get to a certain point and then they get an nystagmus come in and the eyes twitch. So you need to go, have you both ways?
Yes, both ways.
And she's clear. Okay,
yes.
that's good, so infections. Right, so the next one is we're going to go to the right and down, which is for allergic or intolerance. So right and down, we're looking for something that she's eating or drinking. Now we can do this in two ways. We can just simply take the eyes into distortion and she can hold it and we can do the muscle test. Or we can take it down 3 or 4 times, which is called habituation. In other words, you're making a habit of doing it and you then put that into the neurological system. You maybe got 5-10 seconds before the brain will wipe that clean again and say that habit's gone. But it's easier and more comfortable than the patient staying looking down in that position, because if they move away a little bit, they're not going to get the neurological input. And people hate being in the position which causes the neurological aberration because it's not comfortable to them. So you may miss it. So we find the habituation challenge of looking down, back, down, back, down. If the patient doesn't do as they're told, when you say go down to the right, they're not thinking, they're not with you. Okay? Anybody, you're doing this and they're looking, they're not concentrating on what you're doing. And some people are unable to concentrate, for more than half a second at the most. Their brain is, and you know these people because they can't follow your eyes or your finger. So you say go down and they go down and then they don't do it. And the brain is off in the tangent because they can't listen to their brain and do something that you're telling them to do at the same time. So you've got to be strict with patients. Say, come back, follow my finger down, back, follow my finger down. You've got to do it. You cannot do this with young children, obviously, unless they're really quite with it. 7 or 8 usually is an age, and then they're okay. So here we've got a 9-year-old, is she? Yeah, okay, so to the right and down was clear?
Clear, yeah.
Yes, okay. So we're going to skip, you notice number 2, the ATP at the moment, because I'm going to come back to that one at the end, because although energy is very, very important here, I want to spend more time on that, so I tend to put this one in at the end, although if anybody's low in energy, that is the most important thing to deal with. So we've looked at allergy. Now we're going to do toxicity. So eyes to the left. You need it at this stage either to work on the other side of the patient or have long arms. Okay, so it's no good doing that. You've got to get right to the end of the movement. Okay, so you need to come right over the patient and do the movement.
Yeah.
Yes, what?
No.
No. Okay, so she doesn't react to that. So we move on. Everyone we stop at, that there's a problem, that she strengthens in this case, you've got to treat. Okay, because if you don't treat it, you can't go on, because things have chain reactions. So in other words, if she was allergic here to something, and you didn't deal with that, she's going to show up a lot of problems further backwards on the chain. Right? So you've got to deal with it in this order. If she's allergic to something, you've got to find out what she's allergic to. Is it something she's eating, drinking, smoking, pot, or heroin, sniffing cocaine? Is it something you're putting on your skin? Or is it something, as I say, eating, drinking, transdermal and breathing is really the most diagnostic entries. Okay, so we've got 2 toxins. Now after toxins we're going to do the right and up, which is dehydration. Very important, particularly in the summertime, not enough water. And you see you need water to have a wee, to detoxify, if toxins are shown. You see how it's working backwards. So water is actually more important, but it comes before, when we work backwards, before the toxins. So if toxins show up, you've got to get rid of the toxins, but at the same time, the next one that comes up is often dehydration. Okay, so after dehydration, we're going to go to the left and down for structure. This is mechanical problems, really anywhere apart from the cranium. Could be in the neck, thoracic spine, lumbar spine. So that's all good. So there's nothing there showing up. Now we're going to go for the big 3, as we call them. So to the left and up is nutrition. This means that she's deficient in a nutrient within her diet that her body needs. Yes. So this is going to be something of a nutritional factor. And when we divide nutrients out, we look at things like amino acids, or we look at vitamins, we look at minerals, mineral compounds, we look at coenzymes, which are usually the activated vitamin Bs, we look at fatty acids. And what we found is we need to look at fat-soluble vitamins separate from water-soluble vitamins. So vitamin A, D, E and K, we tend to test separately from just multiple with the water. They don't mix with water-soluble vitamins. So the water-soluble vitamins are the B12, vitamin Bs and vitamin C, okay? But it doesn't mix with vitamin D. The fat-soluble vitamins tend to work more like hormones in the body and should be tested differently, particularly D, because probably a third of the people in this room are vitamin D deficient at the moment. You know, I put my money that 2/3 of the people in this room are deficient in zinc, because that's pretty universal. Probably at least a third of the people are deficient in D, and because when did you last get any sunshine of a nature that gave you 290 nanometers of wavelength, okay? The likelihood is August, okay? If you're good, you store 3 months. If you're bad, you store a few weeks. If you can't convert the activated form from your stored, it may be even less. So we all need a holiday. We need a holiday in the sun where the sun is high, okay? So at the moment, nutrition was positive. So what we would do with the positive nutrition is the quickest way into that is to use composites. These are all available from the test kits. So we use a composite of amino acids. That means a composite which has got all the free-form amino acids in it, zapped in it as a simulated copy or frequency. If the person strengthens to that, then you'll need to go to your kit and diagnose individually which one strengthens the person, or maybe more than one. Minerals. So minerals will include all the minerals that the body needs in all their various forms. Now you know that when you go to the health food store or you buy a mineral, let's take zinc for instance. Do you buy zinc picolinate? Do you buy zinc chloride? Do you buy zinc sulfate? Do you use zinc sulfate, etc., ascorbate? There's many different types of zinc, aren't there? And you would have thought zinc was zinc, so you just prescribe zinc. But if you actually muscle test it, not all zinc strengthen a person. Sometimes it's only one type of zinc. So you've got to have a box with all different types of zinc to find the right one. But what you can do is a composite or a blend of all the minerals together, and if a person strengthens that, you know it's a mineral. Now the most likely mineral, there's no point in going to molybdenum or vanadium first. You go to the popular ones. And the most popular one, in other words, the biggest deficiency, is zinc. And then after that, if zinc doesn't strengthen the person in all its forms, you then go to magnesium. And then you go to the other things like selenium, because that's quite popular, and then the other things which might come up. How do we know it's zinc and magnesium? Because it's what you guys buy and prescribe to your patients. And our teaching all over the world, in Russia, Australia, America, is they all buy the same things. Okay? So therefore, that must be the biggest deficiency, because if most people need magnesium or zinc or B6, they must be deficient pretty pandemically. And most of the minerals are deficient simply for one reason and one reason alone, and that's intensive farming. Thanks to superphosphates, which go in the soil, make the plant grow the first year, double the size that it should do. Second year, incredible growth, but not the nutritional value because it's drained the soil. So what do? They don't put the trace minerals back in, more phosphate on, okay? So they put more phosphate on. Third year, the plant is struggling to even grow. Okay? And that's when, on the fourth year, you rip them up and you put the sheep in. Now, interestingly, if you've had superphosphate on the field and you then grass it over to put the sheep in, sheep won't go in. Well, they go in, but they won't eat the grass because they know it's not nutritious. Okay? They stick their heads through barbed wire rather than eat that grass in there to eat anything apart from for superphosphate. Superphosphate grows the amino acids, it puts the phosphates in, so the plant grows the amino acids, okay, and the plant grows, but it drains everything out of the soil. So within a couple of years, your soil is getting more and more depleted. First year is great, and you think, well, fantastic, you know, look at the size of apples I got and all this sort of thing. The next year, and I've done this myself, is amateur gardening. Every 3 years you put superphosphate around your fruit trees, according to my book. Okay? Every year you put potash and sulfates on there, but every 3 years you put superphosphate. I've noticed the second time I put the superphosphate on, which could be anything between 3 to 4 years, the tree dies. No reason. It just gradually, the leaves drop off the tree and it does. There's no nutrients left in the soil. Great, you get all these apples and things the first year, and then maybe the second time, but by the third year, I could never understand why these trees were dying. And it was thanks to me putting the superphosphate on. Okay? So just bear that in mind. It depletes the soil. And most soils are pretty depleted already. And the major world depletion of soils is in zinc, is number one, and magnesium. So don't be at all surprised. Don't go looking for manganese, vanadium and things yet. You know, could possibly be that, but generally it's those. Now, one tip. Which is the most likely source of the mineral that this person needs? And one thing that we observed is the most likely is according to the body type. Now, this is all written down. Green people tend to strengthen to chlorides. Chlorides are how we work with our immune system. We use hypochlorite as our immune system killer. Red people like iodines, as we know, but they tend to work well with phosphates, and sometimes where phosphate isn't applicable, like zinc, with picolinates. So red people there. And blue people enjoy sulfur, so they like sulfates. So the likelihood with the zinc, the likelihood, if we've got a patient who needs zinc, is that we could be a sulfate if they're a blue, could be a picolinate if they're a red, because there's no phosphate there, or could be a chloride if they're green. Okay. So it's interesting how our bodies use different elements. And what colour are you? Red. Okay, so should we try on zinc? Did we get as far as whether she needed a mineral? No. Okay, so if you do a composite of a mineral, let's see if she reacts here to minerals. So we've got mineral composite. This has got all the minerals that are nutritionally available in all their forms. So if she goes strong on it, which is good she does, it means it's in there somewhere. So you're not going to miss it. Okay, so now what we do, which zinc do we do? So we go to our product box, and what we'll find there in the product box is different forms of zinc. Some of them we mix. The smart zinc, we put all three types in. So we give you a sort of blockbuster type of formula there. And in there we put celery seed, which is a natural rich source of zinc, as like a catalyst, because the celery needs zinc to get its enzymes to work. Okay?
Smart zinc.
Yes, you can try smart zinc. So smart zinc works very well. This is a capsule which has all different types of zinc with the celery seed. Try the individual ones, the non-zinc. So let's try, what's that one?
The liquid.
Liquid zinc, yes, so that's, okay. Now, so the liquid, which is sulfates and chlorides, don't work for her. The reason is because she's a red. She'll respond to picolinate. So try zinc picolinate should be the active ingredient in the smart one. Yes. So picolinate, zinc picolinate, or a product with zinc picolinate would be the best. It's interesting, isn't it? Zinc chloride, zinc sulfate, other forms of zinc just don't work. So what chance have you got if you go down the road into a health food store and say, I'd like some zinc, please? You know, 5 to 1 chance that you might get the right one. There's that. Okay, so let's leave that on. Okay, so we work the dose out in the next module, in the next chapter when we do dosing and things. So let's go back now to the eye position and go through that position again. So eyes to the left and up. Because she's in strength now, we want to see if there's anything else in that department. Okay, so she's strong. So we've re-challenged and she stays strong. So now what we're going to do is go to the last couple, is we're going to go up and down for tested for hypoxia. So at this stage we're doing number 9 up there. So she's going weak on hypoxia. So that's the next department that we'll look for. So hypoxia means a lack of oxygen. Doesn't mean no oxygen, it just means a lack of oxygen. So the air in her boilers, her energy producing boilers, is not sufficient to get her to produce enough ATP at the end of the day. And the last challenge would be the ATP, which we may have decided to do number 2, but we'll put this in as the last one. So if you like to do a cross, this is in neurology called saccades, but it's just basically an aerobic challenge. Yes. So she's positive on that one. But there's a reason, because she's below in ATP, and because she's hypoxic, and she's not got enough air to drive the furnace. That's why we do it in this order. So if we can get the oxygen into her tissues, she then may be able to burn her glucose and make the ATP. So that's the order. So when you fulfill that, going around each eye position, double checking each one, make sure they're strong, and you treated each one accordingly, you then go to the genotype and do the same thing. Now the genotype, it will no longer be weak because you've got most of the nutrients on, but very frequently the eye position that weakened or created the change on the phenotype will be the same on the genotype. Not always, but generally they're nutrition, most commonly they're hypoxia and ATP. Those are the most common eye positions for the genotype. So we'll do each of those next time in the next modules. We'll be looking at each one individually.